Welcome back to Black Hat 2025. We are live recording from the Cyber Risk TV studio at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas. I'm your host, Jackie McGuire, and joining me for this interview is Chuck Randolph. He's the Senior Vice President of Strategic Intelligence and Security at 360 Privacy. Welcome, Chuck.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here, Jackie.
Really happy to have you here. We are going to talk about something really interesting. We're going to talk about executive protection.
First thing in the morning, right?
Yeah,
Let's do it.
yeah. I mean, this is a pretty gnarly topic to start with, but I think it's one that's become significantly more prevalent and top of mind for people.
Absolutely.
The data economy has exploded, and we see both registered and non-registered data brokers. And one of the things I thought was interesting is, so you've spent 30 years in executive protection and strategy and things like that, and you've worked for Microsoft, OnTick, At Risk, International. You've had a whole bunch of different jobs, and one of the things you've said is kind of a common thread there is that violence against executives or targeted violence doesn't start with a physical action. It starts with a click.
Right. By the way, it's great to talk to you because I know a little bit about your background. So you have some established creds in threat management. So this is great to have this conversation because I think you'll understand where I say, when I first started out, I'm old in the industry. When I first started out, everything was analog, guns, gates, guards, everything was on paper. We did our thing, we got a briefing, we went out, we protected the individual. That was it.
Just need like three big dudes standing around.
That kind of was what people thought of it. Now I think as we've moved forward 30 years and we start thinking like this idea of the kill chain, I think it was Lockheed and others have this idea of a kill chain or a threat cycle, but it basically starts with ideation and ends with action. And what I've seen throughout the years, and I'm sure you've observed this too, is it starts with an ideation and then that quickly moves to a digital community as well, where I'm looking for bread. I've seen Jackie on TV to now I'm ideating about why Jackie doesn't like Cheerios, and all of a sudden, Jackie's the end all and be all. She hates Cheerios. I'm coming after her, and what do? I go to my phone.
Yeah.
I go to Google, I go to Bing, or I go to wherever you go, Yahoo, wherever you go to get your information, and I start looking. So it really is disruptive in that kill chain process where it rapidly moves into the digital side.
Yeah, so the kill chain, like you said, this is everything from when you start doing, investigating for data, searching for data on someone, all the way through when you actually take an action. And as you mentioned, unfortunately during the pandemic, I became kind of the target of some people's COVID indoor rage, and I experienced this myself. I was doxxed. There were social media groups set up specifically about me. And
how frightening was that?
Yeah.
I don't want to say, because I'm pretty sure you can handle your own.
Yeah.
But how unsettling and then frightening, but how quickly that information goes to, I have a thought about Jackie, to now all of a sudden I'm amassing all this information and I'm understanding where I can
figure out where my kids go to school.
Well, and if you've done a great job, like, look, hey, I'm not online, I do this, great. All I need to figure out is, who's Jackie's spouse or partner, husband, wife, whatever, her kids, her neighbors, and then I go from there.
Yeah.
Maybe I go and I find something on Redfin. Maybe I go find some other crumb. And I think, as you know this yourself, coming from the background, like the way, say, somebody who might be mentally unstable starts fixating. And ideating on it, I must have. I mean, we've seen that play out several times, unfortunately, over the last year to terrible
Very recently, with the NFL headquarters.
Well, I was in New York last week on Monday, 3 blocks, and it was tragic. And then several days later, I did something adjacent to that building. I mean, God bless New York and all the resilience that is New York, but still, it's tragic that we come to a place now where that cycle is much more accelerated through things, like OSINT, PII, information available online.
Even social media algorithms, right? So, I mean, all social media algorithms are optimized for engagement, and typically engagement means some type of emotional reaction, and the stronger the emotional reaction, the higher that gets in your algorithm. Like, oh, you commented 3 times on this extreme post. We're going to show you as much of that stuff as we can because that's what you're engaging with.
Here's something interesting. I think you might find this fascinating as an example. I think it was, I might butcher my dates here, but I think it was 2020 or 2021. There was a young man who showed up with a crossbow and he said, "I'm here to kill the queen." Fortunately, he did not. They countered that. But when they went back and they looked at the case, he was using an app. I can't remember which one it was, but it was basically an app, exactly as you're saying. It basically reflected back to him. And at one point, he tells the app, "I'm an assassin," and the app says, "That's exciting."
Yeah.
And as I recall, one of the last injects he had with the app, or interactions, however we say that nowadays, was like, "Hey, I've been training. I have something. I think I'm going to go do it." And the app basically responded, "I believe in you."
Yeah.
And then off he went. I mean, so it's this really, I do believe, is a new frontier of a combination of cyber digital risk, narrative and perception risk, digital exhaust, physical security, and I think all that's bubbling up to where it's now board level conversations where people are like, we really have to understand this converged environment and how we're thinking about risk to our organization and our high net worth people in them.
Yeah, I've seen, I interview lots of executives for my different jobs, and especially in the last, ever since the United Healthcare CEOs was killed, there have been a ton of increased security measures and things we have to go through. And I think this is definitely top of mind for people. So as the cyber and physical worlds converge, how do you think about that as a protection strategist? How do you think about kind of protecting your executives all the way around, both in the physical world and in the digital world?
I was fortunate in my time before, when I worked for Fortune 50 and beyond that, to help have those converged conversations. And I almost hate to use the words converged because I think it's something we heard when we were younger and in the industry, and they're like, wow, what is this converged thing? And I think a lot of it was, I don't want to say lip service, but I just don't think we weren't quite there.
Mm-hmm.
And
people think of like singularity more
oh my
than
gosh,
just,
what are we doing? And I think things like Weir's Law and things like that, and the acceleration of technology and potentially the risk that comes behind that. And I think we're at a point now, and again, I go back to your own background too, where we can be data driven and understand. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where we begin. We have all, in Randolph's opinion, all security protection efforts starts with awareness. It starts with perceiving who are we, what's out there, what's available, how are people and things perceiving us, and then how can we walk that back and understand, like, where are we exposed in our risk? Mm-hmm. So if you and I are you're the CISO and I'm the CSO, congratulations, we've been promoted again. It's a place for us to have a conversation and say, hey, look, we have not just executives, but think about it from an insider risk program too. Like, we have these centers of gravity in our company that are extremely important. Maybe they have the next code, the next formula for the greatest cereal ever, whatever that might be. And we understand throughout our ecosystem, if you will, who are the centers of gravity, what do we know about them, how are we protecting them, what conversations are we having? And something else I've been thinking about lately, especially given the events that you've talked about, the tragic events in New York, is the idea now of the narrative that needs to be brought in. So not only now is it the CISO and the CSO, where's the head of marketing? What? They need to be part of the conversation too.
Yeah. And it's kind of crazy thinking about it that way, about the fact that, your ability to protect your crown jewels at your company is actually part of what you need to be talking about. But that's one thing that I think, I talked about key person risk a lot, probably like a year and a half ago. And it was this whole concept that there are these engineers embedded in almost every hyperscaler that are irreplaceable.
Exactly.
They hold like some type of, tribal knowledge or something like that if they get hit by a bus, everybody is just, it's,
exactly.
And I think it's something that people don't really think about.
And it's a simple idea. Look, I'm a retired lieutenant colonel as well as an old information ops person. And as I look at that, I think like center of gravity analysis was something we were taught, at War College, that we were taught at staff school. But it's so important for risk, for security, to do that and say, where are these key people? Because, if Jackie goes down, the whole thing's going down.
Yeah.
Like, Chuck might be the face man, but if Jackie goes down, it's over.
I wonder too, so my first like long-term job was at Fidelity, right? And we're badging in everywhere because, and we were, stockbrokers were second floor. I was actually a stockbroker, and IT was first floor, and we couldn't access any of their areas. And so it was always kind of top of mind that this, to your point, like the barriers and the guards and things like that, the physical security gave you this sense of we're protecting something very important. Mm-hmm. I wonder to what extent remote work has kind of eroded that, because we're all sitting in sweatpants at our desks and we're doing still this really impactful work, but we're doing it from the comfort of our homes. I wonder if that to some extent disarms people from a security perspective.
I think by the way, that's a great topic, and we should have an entire 45-minute conversation on have we actually realized the effects of COVID. Great effect. We're all working from home. Bad effect. We don't know what that actually manifests to later on. I think go back to the conversation. I'm sitting in my sweatpants. I've got a suit jacket on, from waist up. I'm doing my thing. I punch off and I see man, Jackie was on the Zoom call. I really don't like her. Mm-hmm. And now I'm ruminating on that. And this idea of, and you probably talked to folks about this idea of a duty of care at the edge. Yeah. Where does it start? Where does it end? Yeah. How do I think about those folks? Because going back to data brokers, and PII and information that's putting out there, look, we're all, we were all working from home. Maybe we're still quasi working from home now. My kids are there. They're putting things out. Mm-hmm. What telemetry, if you will, am I emanating that somebody like Chuck says, I don't like Jackie. I saw her on that Zoom call and I know she was mean mugging me. This is it. I'm going to go find her.
It's just my face, by the way. I just have really bad RBF.
Been actually very lovely. I'm just a curmudgeon.
Yeah.
But you see where I'm going, especially given your bit as data broker, threat management, all that, how that ideation suddenly goes into fixation. And now I've got a supercomputer in my pocket. Mm-hmm. I've got two of them at my desk, and I'm spending my whole day figuring out where Jackie shops.
Yeah. Well, and I think so. One of the things we were talking about before we started recording, when we say data brokers, I think people think of the traditional data brokers, and we've now set up a framework where in the US they're supposed to register as data brokers. Right. They're supposed to abide by specific guidelines. They're supposed to remove your data when you request it. I use several services for that, and I can't remember if it was 404 Media or the New York Times, one of the two, over the last 2 weeks actually just released a report on how few of those data brokers.
It was a California study.
Yeah. And it was basically
early and I haven't had coffee, so I can't quote it. But
I want to say it was 404.
It might have been. And I read the same study, and the lack of response, I think, was something that was remarkable to me in that.
Well, and this is for the companies who've registered. There are also companies who don't register because they know that they'll be subjected to those guidelines. And then there was a really interesting intelligence report that came out of Eastern Europe talking about how data brokers in Eastern Europe who are not subject to those guidelines were using cell phone location data to sell the location of intelligence personnel, diplomats,
When I think about people that also hey, we've been harvesting, I mean, let's not even bring up the quantum, and once we crack everything and all the information we've harvested, maybe sits offshore, and now I can do that, come up with something with that, and then resell it.
Yeah.
I mean, and unfortunately, not everybody's above the board.
Yeah. And I think until we have regulations about what data you can buy, there's probably not going to be a great way to address that.
When I believe New York and California are trying to be cognizant of that and trying to get in front of that, and it's been my observation, if you will, that how New York and California goes, regardless of politics, folks, the rest tend to go, especially with things like that.
Yeah, and I think from your you were talking about AI. I think there's also a question to be had about where the balance between user experience and over confirmation comes in that they've built these generative AI products to be very friendly, and they agree with you and they tell you how smart you are because that makes you want to use them because you feel very good when they're reinforcing these things. But
it becomes your assistant.
You need guardrails. You need you need some type of emergency brake.
You make a great point there too, because now I don't really have to even understand a Boolean search. I could just say, name your AI, help me find everything there is to know and build a bio. Actually, if you think about everything as the prompt and some of it, you might, build a bio like you're a targeteer after Chuck Randolph. Tell me about where he likes to go eat ice cream, what cereal he likes, and
Well, we just found out that generated results that you share are now being indexed on
Yeah.
Google search. So, all right, let me ask you. So, as we're wrapping up, I really actually do wish we had 45 minutes. So, if I'm a CISO or a CSO or a CEO, if I'm an executive really concerned after listening to this terrifying episode, interview, what do I do? Where do I start?
So so everyone wants to answer from the security point of view. I would say, since we've been chatting about AI, I'm your AI and you're asking me to answer as your chief of staff. I would say, hey boss, let's bring these people together and ask them. We have these people in our organization that we understand are security or risk. We know they have silos, blah, blah, blah. Insert that conversation here. But why don't we convene and ask them a question? And if we want to get ahead of that as a CISO or CSO, I can jump forward and say, hey, look, let's convene here.
Yeah.
I'll do the convening. Look, we need a common operating picture, which requires several things. Common operating language, old IO guy, words have meaning.
I agree.
Yep. We need common operating language. We both may speak English. You may think in German. I may think in French. We might think in code. Who knows? Whatever that is, we need to have the data. We need to speak about it the same way. And from that, we can look at and understand risk. And then once we've understood the risk, let's take care of the low-hanging fruit. Let's not go to Death Stars and drone. Let's start with what's low-hanging and ensure that we're protecting ourselves where it matters.
Thank you. Thank you, Chuck, for joining us. This was amazing. Hopefully we will get to do this again soon because I think we could go down a data broker rabbit hole to end all rabbit holes.
I look forward to it, Jackie.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Live from Cyber Risk TV, I'm Jackie McGuire. We are at Black Hat 2025, live in Las Vegas, Nevada. Thank you, Chuck, and thank you, 360 Privacy. Please visit securityweekly.com/360. Oh no, I have to read this /360 Privacy. What is that? OH? Sorry, guys. It's early in the morning and my glasses are not doing their job and my eyes are getting really, really old at this point.
360privacy.io.
All right. 360privacy.io. Thank you, Chuck, for bailing me out. Stick around. We'll be back live from Black Hat with tons more awesome interviews today, Wednesday, and Thursday.